They said it was just a forgotten room. Dust, boxes, nothing more. But one scan, one painting, and my sons were staring at a legacy someone tried to bury. The hallway smelled like old air, the kind that settles when time gives up trying to move forward. Light flickered from overhead fluorescents, and the tenant leading us stopped in front of a metal door without a label. "This one?" I asked. He gave a half shrug. "We'll use it for storage," he said, already moving toward the next unit down the hall. "You're just here to look, right?" I nodded. My sons trailed behind, bored and barefoot in their curiosity. They had no idea this building once held her. Inside, the room was colder, not by temperature, by memory. You could feel it, like walking into a breath that had never exhaled. Dust shimmered in angled sunlight coming from a single broken panel above. The tenant's footsteps echoed away as he left us alone. The silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. We stepped further in, and I started scanning with my phone's flashlight. Boxes, a rusted folding chair, what looked like a disassembled easel propped in the corner. Then, "Mom, look," my youngest said. Against the far wall, a canvas. It was large, tilted, almost buried behind a toppled bookcase. The edges were splintered, paint cracked like veins across its surface. But there was something else, a QR code, embedded, into the corner, small but deliberate. My son reached out. "Wait," I said, too late. He scanned it. 2 seconds passed. Then a soft chime and a link opened. "Digital archive, C. Reyes, private collection." The page blinked into focus. Video thumbnails, audio logs, legal files. A voice memo played automatically. "If you're hearing this, I'm probably not there anymore. But this is mine. This is all mine." My breath caught. My hands trembled, not from fear, from memory. The boys looked at me confused. "She used to work here?" my eldest asked. I nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the screen. "No." "She built this." Every 2 to 3 steps in the room told a story. A chair with initials carved underneath, a locked filing cabinet with a cracked handle, a forgotten USB taped behind a wall poster, half curled from humidity. Micro clues in the dust. The QR wasn't the only one. They were on canvases, desk drawers, even etched under the folding table. Quiet sentinels of a digital presence mapped across analog ruins. "She knew someone would come," I whispered. My youngest reached the desk. On top was a legal pad. The last page still had ink not yet faded. "IP rights transfer, C. Reyes Holding Company." I stared at it. The signature was hers. Suddenly, I wasn't just visiting. The room had chosen us, and someone, somewhere, had let it stay forgotten on purpose. We left the room in silence, but it followed us. That kind of silence that hums in the background of thought, nesting between questions you're not ready to ask. Back at home, the boys had returned to their own worlds, game consoles and snack wrappers. But I sat in front of my laptop, fingers frozen over the keyboard. The QR link still glowed in my bookmarks bar like a lighthouse refusing to dim. Click, the archive loaded again. This time I scrolled. Her voice, my sister's voice, crisp, strong, unapologetic. She had recorded entries like journal logs, each tagged by date, topic, and, bizarrely, legal clauses. April 12th, tenant's refusal to terminate lease despite breach of contract. Good. Document everything, save screenshots. There's always a pattern. She spoke like she was building a case, not against a person, but against erasure. I clicked deeper. Documents unfolded. PDF contracts, chat logs, invoices. A slow unraveling of a company she had founded, then lost. The names changed over time. Shell entities, placeholder logos, new boards, old partners. But at the heart of it, always C. Reyes IP, her work, her identity, My heart started pounding. This wasn't art. This was evidence. One folder caught my eye. Lighthouse_protocol. Password protected. Below it, a short clip played automatically. Grainy surveillance footage of an office hallway. A woman walked past the camera, head down. Her hair was shorter than I remembered. But it was her. At the bottom corner, time code 11:32 p.m., room 8B. That was the room. Back to the hallway where the tenant had said, "Just storage." I reopened the image I took of the painting, zoomed in, under the QR, barely visible. A watermark. Filed under Section 103, Ownership Clause. She had copyrighted the artwork as a digital marker. Each piece was a legal anchor in case anyone tried to erase her authorship. That wasn't paranoid. That was brilliant. And suddenly, it wasn't just my curiosity dragging me forward. It was something electric in the air, the scent of wrongs traceable, injustices not quite buried. The tenant had known the room's content, or at least knew it wasn't empty, but he'd dismissed it, or had been told to. I opened Google Maps, looked up the building. Its current owner was listed as a real estate investment firm, but in the footer of their site, buried in their legal notice, assets formerly held by C. Reyes Holdings, established 2016. They hadn't just taken space, they'd taken her name. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You've accessed protected property. Please confirm your identity." No signature, no details, just that. I didn't reply. I copied the number, searched, nothing. Then, another notification. A new file had been added to the archive. Auto trigger, link access, family IP extension activated. What did that mean? Family extension? I called my sons in. "Boys, I need you to see this." Together, we watched a video marked, "In Case of Discovery, Part 1. My sister sat in her studio, surrounded by canvases, light fractured through blinds like confessions. She looked older, tired, but she smiled. If you're watching this, it means I failed or succeeded. Depending on how you define legacy. Everything they took, it's traceable, but only if you know how to follow it. The paintings are not just art, they're contracts. Each QR holds metadata, legal signatures, timelines. She paused. And yes, I built the archive to outlive me. The screen faded to black, then the title. This is her company. If the QR codes were contracts, what else had she buried in plain sight, caught in the story? Don't miss what she left behind. Follow for the next chapter. I didn't sleep, not because I was afraid. That would come later, but because her voice wouldn't leave my head. The way she smiled in that last video. The way she said traceable, like it was a warning and a promise wrapped together. By morning, I'd printed screenshots of every QR I'd seen in that room, lined them across the kitchen table like puzzle pieces. The boys watched silently, sensing something serious, something fragile. The metadata inside each QR wasn't just a file link. It carried timestamps, IP geolocation markers, and obscure legal terms embedded in the image structure itself. She'd turned her art into intellectual property claims, weaponized beauty, code disguised as brushstrokes. The first canvas I'd found, tied to a specific clause in U.S. Title 17, the copyright law. It declared artistic authorship and date of creation. And since the file was archived with digital notarization, it was practically bulletproof in court. How many of these contracts had they overlooked, or worse, tried to destroy? I dug deeper into the archive, now half obsessed. Each video entry felt like a diary crossed with a deposition. Tenant signed off with full knowledge of art storage. I recorded the conversation. QR code embedded March 15th. Painting, reclamation, signature under UV only. She documented everything, every verbal agreement, every piece of office gossip that could hint at sabotage. Every time someone at the firm tried to edge her out of decisions, she tagged it with context and proof. She was building her defense before they came for her. It wasn't just a company they stole. It was her identity encoded into evidence. And I was holding the map back to it. But the more I read, the more I noticed something chilling. In a folder titled Employee Messages, there were screenshots of internal company chats. The tone shifted over time. At first, friendly, then dismissive. Then, she's overcomplicating everything with her art law nonsense. It's just wall filler. Let legal deal with it. Worst case, we paint over it. Paint over it. The casual cruelty of that phrase made my skin go cold. Someone on the team, maybe several, knew what she was doing. They just didn't care, or worse, they knew, and they wanted to erase it before the metadata could anchor. My phone buzzed again. Another text, same unknown number. You're not authorized to activate family clauses. Cease access immediately. Then, last warning. I turned to the boys. Pack bags. We're going back to the building. Back to room 8B. We arrived just before noon. The hallway was busier now. A cleaning cart stood parked in front of another unit. I nodded to the same tenant, who barely looked up from his clipboard. You're back, he muttered, still poking around. I gave a smile I didn't feel. I forgot something. He didn't stop me. Inside the room, everything was exactly as we left it, except one thing. The painting with the first QR code, gone. There was a faint rectangle of dust on the wall where it had been. And below it, a small taped square of white paper with black Sharpie handwriting. Some things aren't yours to reopen. But she had prepared for this. Under the floorboard, just beneath the base of the easel, I found it. A second canvas, thinner, wrapped in plastic, taped to the back, a post-it. If they take the surface, go deeper. I turned the canvas over, scanned the corner. Another QR new link. Folder. Company minutes. Shadowboard. The true record. The ones they didn't file. If they erased the paintings, what else had they buried that was never meant to resurface? The folder opened like a trap door. Inside, blurry scanned PDFs, misdated meeting minutes, and folders labeled Draft Do Not Upload. The tone was cautious, unfinished, and more importantly, secret. This wasn't just corporate backroom chatter. It was intentional exclusion. My sister had hidden the real minutes, the ones where they discussed selling off her assets, diluting her ownership stake, and filing new patents using her original code names, just tweaked enough to bypass detection. They hadn't removed her work, they'd renamed it. One note caught my eye. Reyes's insistence on QR tagging is becoming a liability. If we remove her, we must ensure all IP traces are severed before audit. Another. She suspects refiled artwork under LLC variant. Legal suggests waiting 90 days post-removal before official asset transfer. They were timing her erasure, legally, strategically, digitally. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking, part fury, part fear. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated deletion. And now, I had proof. Downstairs, I found the building's security office, a room half hidden behind a copy machine. The man inside looked up surprised, middle-aged, coffee in one hand, eyes tired but kind. I need footage, I said, from room 8B, last 48 hours. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Someone entered illegally, removed protected property. He gave me a long look, then shrugged. Lawyers handle tenant stuff, but hang on. He tapped into his console, flipped through camera angles. There it was. Timestamp 3:18 a.m. A man in a hoodie, gloves, quick, precise, no flashlight. He walked in, took the canvas, left. Gone in under 3 minutes. Silent as theft. The security guard whistled low. "That your painting?" "It was hers," I said. "She encoded IP rights into it." That got his attention. "Wait, your sister's the QR artist?" he said, eyes wide. "The one who used to rent out the whole floor?" I nodded slowly. Damn, I thought that was just urban legend. The woman who painted contracts. People still talk about her. Then one day she vanished, and all the tenants changed. I wanted to ask more, but he leaned in. "There's a maintenance guy, Victor. He used to deliver stuff to her unit. Always said she left him something. A key? Or a box, I don't know. He quit 2 years ago, lives nearby." He scribbled an address. Outside, the sky was turning violet, that bruised color right before dusk. I called the boys. We drove. Victor's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a cracked stucco building. He answered in his socks, holding a sandwich, squinted at me. "You're Reyes's sister," he said before I even opened my mouth. He let us in. The box sat in his closet, untouched, heavy. "She said if anyone came looking after she was gone, really looking, to give them this." Inside, a stack of black envelopes, each one labeled with initials and dates. One was addressed to me. To M. "If you're reading this, I knew you'd come. Everything they tried to bury. They forgot you know how to dig." Below it, a thumb drive. I opened the files. It wasn't just art. It wasn't just legal evidence. It was the original shareholder ledger. And her name? Still listed as majority owner. The drive had no label, just a dull black surface, fingerprints smudged across it, as if it had passed through hesitation, through years of not quite letting go. Back at home, I inserted it into an old laptop. The screen blinked twice before opening a terminal window. No fancy interface, just code. And then, a line of text. "Welcome, Monsieur Reyes. Authorization confirmed via inheritance clause. Decryption in progress." My heart skipped. She had built this to recognize me, my name, my machine, my bloodline, the files unlocked. It was a full tree of company records, but not the ones from the archive. These were raw, untouched, unmanipulated. Original pitch decks, product prototypes, designs for the interface that would later become the heart of the company now run under a different name, with a different founder listed. My sister had been scrubbed, except here, where she still existed, pixel by pixel. One folder was marked in bold, XR Project, Reyes V 0.9. I opened it. Inside, blueprints, voice memos, and a beta video of her demonstrating what looked like an augmented reality system, a tool that turned spaces into interactive contracts. QR codes, yes. But more than that, rooms as legal frameworks. You'd walk into a space and agree to terms by engaging with it, visually, tangibly. She hadn't just been an artist, she was years ahead of them all. "Why did they take her name off this?" I whispered. The boys sat beside me now, quiet. My eldest leaned forward. "So, you could bring it back, right?" I almost laughed, or cried, I wasn't sure which. "If this holds up legally. They never owned it. They never had the right to run it." And then, like she planned it all along, I noticed a file at the very top of the directory tree. reclamation_rights.pdf. It was a step-by-step process, a self-triggering legal sequence that would activate the moment a verified heir accessed the drive. Steps included: submit verified shareholder ledger to IP registry, validate art-based QR contracts via third-party certification, File digital cease and desist against current operating entity. Notify silent shareholders via digital service. Launch Reyes Archive Public Gallery, public-facing proof of origin. It wasn't a revenge plan. It was a return path, and she'd entrusted it to me. I filed the paperwork that night, quietly, carefully, without alerting the company now operating under her code, her brand, her blood. The next morning, a legal representative emailed me, cold, formal. This must be a mistake. Our records show no active claim from Reyes, I replied with a single sentence. Check your source code. An hour later, a second email, shorter, sharper. Let's talk, privately. I didn't answer. Instead, I published the first gallery, public, undeniable, a canvas, a QR, her voice, a headline, the company she built before they painted over her name. 2 days after the gallery went live, the messages changed. No more veiled legalese, no more misunderstandings. Just silence. Then, late that night, a knock on the door. Not loud, just deliberate. I opened it half an inch. A woman stood there, blazer too perfect, phone already recording. Behind her, a man I recognized from the company's About page. VP of Operations, the one who'd been listed as co-founder, after they wiped my sister. Ms. Reyes, she began, we'd like to request a conversation, off record. You've shared confidential material without authorization. I leaned against the frame, casual. You mean her material, the one she signed, dated, and legally embedded into every file? The man spoke up, tone clipped. You've caused disruption. Shareholders are concerned. I held his gaze. Then they should have been concerned when they removed her name from her own contracts. They asked to come in. I said no. She offered compensation. I said no. He mentioned the difficulty of maintaining reputational harmony in moments like these. I said, so sue me. They left without another word. Back inside, I opened my laptop again. The gallery had crossed 80,000 views, dozens of reposts, artists, journalists, even 1 or 2 lawyers now tagging the company online asking, why wasn't she listed in the founding board? Why are these contracts time-stamped a year before the official launch? But it was a message buried in the comments section that stopped me cold. I worked in that building. I remember her. She made room 9A something else, not storage. It was a map. Room 9A, not 8B. We'd missed it. I packed my bag, told the boys to stay, and drove. The building's nighttime security recognized me now. He just nodded and handed me the spare key before I could speak. 9A was on the opposite side. No tenant label, just a painted X across the door, faint under dust. Inside, nothing, until the lights flickered on. The room wasn't empty. It was a vault, canvases sealed in protective glass, wall panels wired with motion sensors, a small pedestal in the center, and on it, a tablet device, asleep. When I touched it, it blinked to life. If you're here, you already know they tried to erase me. Her voice again. But I backed it all up, not just the art, not just the legal, the entire company framework, vision, financials, clients, patents, stored in this room, tied to this IP location, blockchain sealed. She paused. The room is legally marked as a digital safe under my name. The QR embedded in the pedestal linked to a registry. I scanned it, waited, then saw it. Owner, C. Reyes Digital Vault Designation, founding IP Hub, Reyes Holdings, active, not transferred, not expired, unlawfully accessed, yes, reclamation process, approved. They'd locked the door, twice, but she'd built the hinges. They thought fire would finish what deletion couldn't. The next morning, smoke rose behind the building, not a blaze, a contained burn. Utility issue, said the report. Old wiring near storage. But I knew exactly where the fire started. Room 9A. By the time I arrived, the fire crew was already packing up. The walls were blackened, scorched with lines that looked like charred fingerprints. But something stopped me cold. The pedestal was intact, and on it, the tablet, burnt on the edges, but still breathing under the glass like a heartbeat. I touched it. It opened. Ink, heat-resistant. Glass, triple-sealed. QR, duplicated in cloud. You didn't think I built this for fragility, did you? Her voice again, steady, amused. If they're burning evidence, they know they're losing. I scanned the pedestal QR again. The blockchain signature had already updated. New entry logged. Tampering attempt detected. Flagged to public chain. Translation: the fire had triggered a legal alert. She'd fireproofed her story. Everything was mirrored in digital. Images, files, contracts, cross-referenced with timestamps that no one could edit. Not even with admin access. She'd thought of everything. But the damage wasn't just physical. A painting had been taken. One of the early works, Memory Debt, dated the year before launch. Its QR was crucial. It linked the prototype UI to the original visual interface, a breadcrumb trail from concept to execution. Without it, the timeline frayed. Unless... I dug through the digital backup and found a hidden folder. Echo_canvases. Inside, high-res scans. Metadata intact. She had duplicated every painting, layered with UV signatures and spectral tagging. Anyone could repaint, but no one could replicate the light print without her digital fingerprint. She'd even recorded a message for this moment. They'll try to misplace what they can't legally fight. That's why I baked truth into shadow. No matter how many layers they burn, the light will bring it back. I posted the scans, captioned each one, archived, authenticated, untouchable. Within the hour, legal subreddits were dissecting the metadata. 2 hours later, an IP lawyer tagged the company's official page with, "Any comment on the attempted destruction of registered IP?" And then, something changed, a public statement, polished, cold, dismissive. The Reyes archive represents one contributor's perspective, not a formal record. While we respect her creativity, we retain all operating rights and trademarks. But under that, thousands of replies, screenshots, video clips, contracts. The internet had already declared its verdict, and it was louder than court. Still, it wasn't over. Because in the last line of her final audio file, she left a whisper for me alone. "Look under the code. There's one thing they didn't know I hid. It's not just about what they took. It's about who helped them." Someone close had signed it all away. And I was about to find out who. I printed the final ledger from the drive, the one marked Final Authorization Log. Each name, each timestamp of access and action, listed like echoes. 32 stakeholders, some anonymous, some very familiar, and one, in particular, circled in blue ink. J. Reyes. No title, no role, just the signature of someone with my name. And a timestamp, 10 days before she vanished from the company. I sat motionless. I had no sibling named J. My sister was C. Reyes. I was M. Reyes. But J, the ink wasn't hers. The loop of the R was wrong. The flourish too ornate. And the date, it matched a day when she was hospitalized. I remember because I was there, holding her hand. She couldn't have signed anything, but someone had. I dug into the metadata, the IP address, the device ID, the GPS. It pinged from the same building, different floor, the legal team's office. They forged her name on a transfer of ownership and used a fake Reyes, a name close enough to blend on paper, to bury the change inside bureaucratic white noise. I called the boys. You need to see this. We lined the kitchen wall with timelines, post-its for people, red yarn for connections. I circled the forged name and wrote 3 words under it. Find the ghost. 2 days passed, no answers, just silence, no new messages. The company's social feeds now turned off replies. Until I received a DM from an anonymous account. I know who Jay is. I worked there. Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m. East Side Library. The profile had no name, but its banner image? A blurred photo of one of her paintings. I went. The library was nearly empty. Cold sunlight filtered through tall windows onto wood tables, etched with decades of graffiti. A woman sat at the far end, hood up, laptop open. She didn't look up when I sat. I didn't sign an NDA, she said. I waited. I was in legal, 6 years. They made me scrub her name from the articles of formation. Said it was for restructuring. I believed them. I slid the forged ledger across the table. She flinched. That's not her signature. I said nothing. They used a ghost signer, hired someone through a legal proxy firm to file the changes under a relative name, just close enough to slide past manual checks. I leaned in. Do you have proof? She tapped her screen, opened an old email. Confirming ghost signature services as requested. Name used, J. Reyes, non-existent relative placeholder. Files buried per agreed terms. Delete after reading. She hadn't deleted it. Why now? I asked. She looked at me, finally. Her eyes were tired, honest. She deserved to be known, not ghosted. I left with the file. It was enough to prove fraudulent IP transfer, board-level deception, and forgery of a founding member's identity. It was enough to burn them legally, and, in my inbox, another auto-triggered file had appeared from my sister's archive. Subject: in case they used a fake me. The first line: Jay was never real, but the truth always is. The court filing wasn't cinematic, no dramatic music, no slammed gavels, no confessions mid-testimony, just documents, time-stamped, authenticated, immutable. The archive spoke louder than any voice. The forged signature, debunked through forensic handwriting analysis. The proxy firm, forced to release client contracts under subpoena. The metadata trail, presented with QR-linked proof, verified through independent blockchain audit. And at the center of it all, her art, not as decor, but as legal infrastructure. Each painting had been admitted as evidence, one by one. The judge's eyes narrowed when the metadata loaded from a canvas scan in real time. This, he said, is a contract? Yes, Your Honor, I replied. Signed in code, backed by copyright. Every QR was her consent, her authorship, her claim. The courtroom went silent. That silence held more than awe. It held recognition. The company tried to settle. Of course they did. Quiet money, NDA, rewriting the narrative as miscommunication. But her name had already gone viral. #Reyes was first started trending. Artists posted their own QR-coded work, citing her as inspiration. Tech journals featured the woman who signed with paint. Even law students dissected her archive as precedent for non-traditional IP assertion. She'd become more than a founder. She'd become foundational. A month later, we returned to the building. The new tenant, a young woman who recognized me, handed me something she found taped behind the breaker box. A folded paper, faded, ink bled with time. It read, "If they take the surface, dig deeper. If they rewrite you, rewrite louder. If they ghost you, haunt them." It was signed, C. Reyes, founder, artist, owner. I framed it beside the first painting, and below it, for the exhibit plaque, "This is her company." 6 months later, the building changed its name. What had once been Reyes Holdings' forgotten floor was now something else entirely. The archive gallery. No tenant plaques, just canvases. Each room reconstructed with the help of her backups. Room 8, B, a legal gallery. Room 9, A, the digital vault, glass reinforced and untouched since the fire attempt. Room 7C, newly discovered, hidden between elevator shafts. A space she'd used for late-night work, lit by strings of warm lights and framed with unfinished canvases. I opened the space to the public. Free admission, no security glass. Just signs that read, "Please don't erase what's already survived once." People came, artists, coders, archivists, families, lawyers, even former employees. Some with guilt in their eyes, others with quiet pride. One man left a note in the comment box. "She told us they'd erase her. I didn't believe her." I see now she wasn't paranoid. She was precise. We installed a screen in the center of the lobby. Every hour, it played her original message. They told me QR codes were gimmicks, that metadata wasn't authorship, that painting could never prove ownership. But I wasn't painting to be seen. I was painting to be remembered. Visitors scanned, learned, sat on the floor and cried quietly. And one afternoon, my youngest son, the one who'd first spotted the canvas in room 8B, tapped my arm. "Mom," he whispered, pointing to the back corner. A girl was sitting there, maybe 15, sketch pad in her lap, drawing a painting she was staring at like it was a map. "She's doing what she did," he said. I smiled. "Exactly." Because this wasn't just restoration. It was replication, continuation, protection. We built a foundation in her name, the Reyes Initiative, to help artists legally register non-traditional works, to encode their authorship, and to archive their truth. The company that erased her? They went quiet, then bankrupt. Their story ended with a quarterly report. Hers, with an open door. The last thing I added to the archive was her first ever painting, scanned and restored. A hand reaching out of static, pulling color from grayscale. The title? "You Found Me."